Tactical Sports Take, inbound.
Who the fuck is that guy?
Beat him off.
Stomp on his head as he's unconscious.
Five-tool commentator.
He's the Willie Mays of sports broadcasting.
DiMaggio.
It's time now for North Star Sports, your source for the hottest sports takes in the business. Here's your host, Owen Ely.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Owen Ely Show. I'm your host, Owen Ely. You can follow me on Twitter at OwenEelyMN. You also can follow North Star Sports on Twitter at NorthstarMIN. Be sure to check out our website at northstarsports.media. And welcome into the show, everyone. We got a great one for you today here on this Tuesday, November 16th, as we look to recap a UFC Fight Night, Holloway versus Rodriguez, which took place on Saturday, November 13th at the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada. As always, great to be back with you guys. One hell of a stretch we're on here for UFC events, coming off of a banger of a fight night card, 2 consecutive pay-per-views in back-to-back weekends. I mean, it's just there's never been a better time to be a fan of mixed martial arts, and we're here to celebrate that. But there's always, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but there's always a regression to the mean. So I think we're going to hit that. I think it's like when you get drunk for a couple of days in a row. Like like I remember in college, like you'll drink a lot on like a Friday, and you'll wake up like Saturday morning. You're probably going to party Saturday night as well, and you're a little bit hungover. But what you do, what's a pro gamer move, is when you wake up on Saturday morning, to avoid the hangover, you just keep drinking. And not even a lot, just a little. Just have a beer in the morning, just to stop the headache. But, ultimately, when you tax the body, when you take and you take and you take, you're going to get yours eventually. I mean, the hangover is coming. You can't avoid it. And, we've been very spoiled here watching the UFC again with the 2 pay-per-views and this awesome fight night card. And I think we're gonna get our comeuppance this Saturday, because it's headlined by Ketlen Vieira and Miesha Tate. I couldn't think of 2 fighters I want to see less in a main event. To be honest, it probably should be UFC Fight Night, Chiesa versus Brady. But I don't think we're gonna be that lucky. But it looks like a terrible card. But obviously, we'll preview that when the time is right. But for now, we'll get right into Holloway versus Rodriguez. After a little bit of housekeeping, I did update the website with updated rankings for the last 4 weeks because I've been neglecting it. So we do have drastically different rankings. Obviously, I updated them for every week, so you can go back and kind of look at the backlog. But also, I did not even a random shuffle, because they'll say that in the UFC sometimes. But I just went through and I did inventory on some of the people who were ranked. So I kind of want to get to the rankings right away, because the fight card on Saturday didn't really have a whole lot of difference on the rankings, to be honest. And we've had a lot of movement over the 2 pay-per-views, and so I just kind of wanted to get to some of that. Like we took Chris Weidman out of the middleweight rankings. We had him at 9, which I never felt good about, but we moved him to unranked. I mean, he's probably never going to fight again. And that's the thing too. Like I'll get stuck with these rankings sometimes, because I'm very literal with my rankings. Like context is important, but I have like set guidelines. So like, you could be an unranked fighter. You could be a fucking nobody. But if you fight in the middleweight division and you beat Jack Hermanson, who's number 6, then you're number 6. You're not number 7. You're not number 8. If you beat the person, you are the person. So that's why I kind of got fucked with having Chris Weidman at number 9, which obviously sounds crazy, but he beat Omari Akhmedov, who at the time we had at number 9. So it's like, well, how can I not say he's a number 9 guy? So I wouldn't say that's necessarily a flaw with my rankings. It's, we're just adhering to, not even a hard and fast rule set, but just, general pattern. So he's out of there. We got Nasruddin Imavov in at the rankings at number 13. Obviously, you can check out all these rankings at northstarsports.media. It's not exactly going to do it justice, me explaining it, but I just figured I'd go through some of the bigger ones. Some random reshuffles. I mean, we moved Darren Till up a couple of spots, Gastelum up a couple of spots, which I don't feel great about because, they lose a lot of fights, but, middleweight's kind of thin. We took Kevin Lee out at lightweight. The UFC had done that for quite some time, but he seems to be committed to welterweight. He hasn't had a win in the lightweight division in 26 months. So we moved him out. A bunch of people moved up. We put Fiziev in the rankings at 15. We had a lot of movement in the featherweight division. Everybody moves up a spot because we took Zabit Magomed Sharipov out of the rankings. I don't think he's had a win in 26 months as well. I think the last time he fought was Calvin Kattar on that fight card in Moscow. So, if you're inactive, I really try not to overreact, like how the UFC or whoever does the bidding for the UFC, because the UFC doesn't control their rankings technically because it's media rankings. But whatever fucking idiots took Leon Edwards out of the rankings because he turned down a fight or couldn't fight or whatever, even though he had fought within that calendar year, that's fucking stupid. But there comes a time where even I say you're inactive, so Zabit's out. Ilya Topuria comes in at 15, and then everybody else moves up a spot. Even works out good for Yair because he lost, obviously, in the main event. Spoiler alert, but we moved him up a spot. So he's now at number 4 instead of number 5 because of the droppage of Zabit. We shuffled around bantamweight a little bit. I don't give a shit about flyweight, so I haven't changed those rankings in quite some time. I just don't fucking care if Amir Albazi should be ahead of Bruno Silva or whatever. I mean, there's 17 flyweight fighters in the UFC, so I don't really give a shit about that or a lot of the women's rankings because they're just too hard. They're too hard. Like flyweight, tell me how you would rank it at flyweight. I spent probably 10 minutes, which doesn't sound like a whole lot of time, but I probably spent 10 minutes thinking about how I should rank the flyweight division, and it's every single ranking that I came up with was just incorrect. I wasn't happy with it. So I hate that because you have so many fighters who are just rejects from 135, rejects from 115. They come in, they beat somebody, they lose to somebody else. There's no clear number one contender. It's I'm very certain Jessica Andrade is the number one contender. Now that doesn't necessarily mean, or she's ranked number 1. I guess number 1 contender would imply that she's getting a title shot, but pretty confident with her at 1. Pretty confident with Chukagian, Murphy, and even Maya at 4. But 5 through 15, dude, I don't know. Calderwood, Lee, Araujo, Santos, Calvillo, Grasso, Modafferi, Barber, Maverick, and O'Neal. Any of those could go basically in any order. Basically any order. Could somebody explain to me how Joanne Calderwood is above or below Cynthia Calvillo or Jessica Ai? It's just such a disgusting division when it comes to nobody can go on a winning streak. It's always one up, one down. It's just so random. It makes no sense. So that's just an absolute disaster. And then we did shuffle around pound for pound a little bit. So we have Kamaru Usman now, obviously because of his win over Colby Covington at number 1 pound for pound. John Jones at number 2. Let's see. Obviously Glover's in the pound for pound rankings because he's champ now. We moved down Jan Blachowicz a handful of spots, and that's pretty much it on that one. Bumped up Poirier a little bit. Bumped up Adesanya because Jan fell, so some reshuffling there. Obviously, pound for pound doesn't really fucking mean anything. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I don't know why we do pound for pound, but it is what it is. All right, I think that's just about all the housekeeping we had, so we can get right into the main event here. Obviously, Max Holloway winning a unanimous decision over Yair Rodriguez. Just a weirdly competitive but dominant performance for Max Holloway. I mean, I'm kind of conflicted on how I feel. I mean, obviously, I think that was an A+ performance from Yair Rodriguez. I never really thought much of him. I thought he was a flashy striker. I always thought Yair Rodriguez was kind of a fucking dickhead, to be honest with you. But maybe he's not. Maybe I was just misreading Yair Rodriguez. But one hell of a performance, and his stock goes up even in a loss. But I really believe that was his A+ performance. I don't think it gets any better. So, for whatever you could say about him outstriking Max, you can't take anything away from him, and I'm not trying to either. But, for round 1 and round 2, where he was just beating him to the punch, beating him to the kick, really chopping up the lead leg of Max Holloway, I think that's as good as it gets. So, while it's not a flawless victory for Max Holloway, I don't think that was just a kind of a good performance. I think that was literally the best performance Yair could deliver, and Max still gets the win. I had it for sure 3-2 Max, potentially 4-1 Max. And so at the time I had it Yair winning round 1 and round 2. I thought it was pretty clear that Max won rounds 3 and 4, and more confident than not that Max had won round 5. It seems like a lot more people in the media and just, kind of gauging people on Twitter, it seems like people were more willing to give Max round number 2 than I was. Although it was a close round. I'm not, going to die on the hill that I thought Yair 100% won that round. Just, as I was keeping tabs in my head, I thought it was a win for Yair. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't have the stats, but neither do the judges. But either way, a win for Max Holloway. I like that he mixed in the wrestling, especially against a guy like Yair, who's certainly not known for his ground game. I mean, you go back to probably his most famous performance outside of the win over the Korean Zombie was his loss to Frankie Edgar, where you just grapple fucked the shit out of him, and that's kind of how you got to beat Yair, unless you're the best boxer in the UFC like Max, and then you can kind of hold your own in the striking and then start to get ahead. But Max is a tricky puzzle, and we definitely saw this in the prime of his career before he ran into the greatest featherweight of all time, Alexander Volkanovski. But he just gets better round for round. I mean, he really does. Like, unless you put him away, which really nobody's been able to do that to him in his prime. He just gets better round over round. You saw it in the Ortega fight. That was just kind of dominance from beginning to end, but it's just, he's pretty fucking hard to stop. He can definitely take a punch as well, and it was a great performance. Don't have too much more to say other than that. For Yair, we'll go with the easy one. For Yair, your stock goes up. You did lose. You still got a pretty record, 13-3. Featherweight's kind of shallow at the top. There's not a whole lot of active contenders, so obviously I think he's going to need some time off, but you're competing with Brian Ortega, who's kind of fucked because he got dominated by Volkanovski. He's not getting a rematch anytime soon. He got destroyed by Max Holloway, so if Volkanovski's not the champ, then Holloway's going to be the champ, so Ortega's fucked. He's not even... he should move up to 155. He doesn't even factor in even the slightest bit in featherweight. The Korean Zombie, I mean, he's not the most active fighter in the world, and he's kind of flip-flopping wins and losses. Very dangerous fighter. Calvin Kattar, I guess he's coming back. Who is he fighting now? What is it, Giga Chikadze? Kattar's got a fight coming up, but I don't know. I'm kind of bullish on Calvin Kattar. Josh Emmett's coming off of that huge injury. So a loss to Max Holloway is not the biggest deal in the world. I still think the most important thing is off of that performance, more people are going to want to watch Yair in his next fight. And oftentimes in the UFC, you got to win fights, but oftentimes it's not necessarily about who has the longest winning streak in the world. Just ask Leon Edwards. It's about who do you want to see fight, and that increased that appetite for Yair. And then for Max, I've seen some people saying, they want to see the trilogy with Volkanovski. I really don't. I honestly don't. If it's booked, I think it'll be exciting. It'll be fun. It'll be a great fight, no doubt. It will not be a dud. But I don't really have a whole lot of interest in that. I think Volkanovski is going to be the champ for a very long time. Max Holloway is still relatively young, actually fucking very young, at 29. So neither fighter's going anywhere anytime soon. So let's not rush a trilogy. Like I don't have a whole lot of appetite for that. I think Volkanovski wins again. So then if Volkanovski wins 3 times, like what the fuck do we say? Just like, attaboy, like I don't know. It's just let's have some time in between. Let's have Max go do some other stuff in the meantime. That trilogy fight is always there. It's always there. It's just when you lose 2 times, booking a trilogy is pretty fucking hard to do. It's kind of tough to figure out who the next title challenger at featherweight would be if it's not Max Holloway, but if Giga Chikadze goes out and has a nice performance, he'll be in the top 5, very active, good striker, might present some issues for Volkanovski. Let's see that, but let's let the featherweight division play out a little bit. As for Max Holloway, I really want to see him at lightweight because I think there's a lot of interesting opportunities there. He was mentioning that he has a win over Charles Oliveira. That is true. That was also about fucking 6 years ago in the wrong division. But, history is there. Now, I'd be pretty surprised if Max Holloway got a title shot at lightweight without getting a win at lightweight because, Jesus, you'd have to jump ahead of Justin Gaethje and Michael Chandler and Islam Makhachev and guys like this, so I'd be pretty shocked. But hey, let's see him fight Conor McGregor when he comes back. Let's see him fight Conor. Let's see him fight Poirier if he loses. Let's see him, I don't know, let's see him fight Tony Ferguson or something. Let's see, we don't have to pigeonhole him into the featherweight title shot because, again, if he loses, then he's kind of fucked. If he loses to Volkanovski in, let's say they fight in May. If he loses to Volkanovski, he has to move up to lightweight. He's fucked. You have 3 losses to the champ. It just kind of ruins everything. If you're Max, you don't necessarily want to think like that, and be scared to fight somebody because what could happen in the future. But it's like, nah, your stock is really high. Let's give him some money fights. He deserves a money fight. Let's have him go fight a legacy fight outside of the featherweight division, or even in the featherweight division. I don't know, maybe somebody wants to come up or somebody wants to go down, or I don't know, but it just, I don't really like the idea of him fighting for the featherweight strap. Yeah, I think that's about that. So moving on to the co-main event, we had a very quick, potentially controversial finish by Marcos Rogerio de Lima on Ben Rothwell. Big Ben Rothwell, the king of Kenosha. Not exactly the city you want to be attached to these days, but I'm sure Kenosha is a nice city. I really like small towns in Wisconsin, by the way. Obviously, I'm biased because I went to River Falls, but man, small college towns. I don't even know if there's a college in Kenosha. Definitely not a Wisconsin system school there, but man, 40,000 population towns in Wisconsin are fucking cool. Rural Wisconsin sucks balls, but Eau Claire is awesome. Eau Claire is so nice. I should have went to Eau Claire. La Crosse is super beautiful. Menominee's not bad. Obviously River Falls is it's okay. It's kind of a little too small for my liking. If it was 35,000 people in River Falls, then it'd be awesome. But man, small town Wisconsin is awesome. But that's neither really here nor there. I like the stoppage. I think Herb Dean kind of botched it by doing the chicken dance and touching him and then letting the fight continue. Listen, once you touch a fighter, the fight's over. I don't know if it's technically in the rule book, but Jesus, once you touch somebody and then, you got Rogerio de Lima looking up at Herb what are we doing? And then Herb's okay, let's stop it. It's you have to be very definitive with stoppages because you can't, Like, imagine how fucked up that would be if the fight was allowed to continue. When DeLima looks at Herb Dean like, what the hell's going on? You touched me. And Herb's like, just keep fighting. And in that split second where he's, not focused on Ben Rothwell, say, he gets Kimura'd or something, or Ben Rothwell continues fighting and survives, and then in the second round he knocks him out. I mean, it's, if you touch somebody, I mean, you have to be so definitive with it. You can't pussyfoot around it. And there is a fine balance between being like Mario Yamasaki and letting somebody get their fucking head caved in and, stopping the fight way too early. But it's like, I'm always, when a fight's done, when a fight's stopped. We know of the times when fights should have been stopped and weren't, because they're pretty rare. You know what I mean? Like Merab Dvalishvili and Marlon Moraes. That fight should have been stopped, but obviously it wasn't, and it's one of the greatest comebacks of all time. And we look at it through this lens now, but it's like at the time, like in that second where, he the last 2 minutes he's just been getting fucking murdered. It's like, yeah, that probably should have gone the other way, but obviously that's the exception to the rule. But I don't really have a problem with it. He was pretty wobbled. I don't think you have to have your fucking skull caved in for us to call, for us to stop the fight. TKOs don't have to be fucking near-death experiences. It should be a little more like a sport in that sense. Obviously it's not a sport. It's combat, and there are grave consequences. But exactly that, there are grave consequences. I mean, you know what I mean? You don't have to be like that guy from The Walking Dead who gets his fucking head caved in with a crowbar or a lead pipe or whatever. I mean, like, we can stop it before then. So, it is what it is, especially at heavyweight where, I don't know. It's a stoppage when you see it. Sometimes it's kind of hard to explain what a good stoppage should be. But a lot of people say, obviously, I think the like exact wordage in the rule book is intelligently defending yourself. I don't know. A stoppage when you see it. Moving on to the featured bout, we had a late finish in round 3 by Felicia Spencer on Leah Letson. Very dominant performance from Spencer. I thought that was a great game plan. Pressure her. Obviously, she's rusty, hasn't fought in like 2 or 3 years. Never should have been in that fight. The featherweight division is a sham. Should not exist. And this is what happens. Sometimes we see very bad outcomes happen at 145 because there's nobody there to fight. There's 2 good featherweights on the roster. One of them is a bantamweight called Amanda Nunes, and the other is Felicia Spencer. I think Felicia Spencer is a good fighter. I really do. I also think she could make 135 if she wanted. I don't want to get into it, but you could look at her body and you could probably find, Actually, that's going to sound way worse if I don't say what it is, but, she's a little plumper. I don't want to make it sound dirty. I wasn't going... Look at me trying to defend myself in my own show, but I wasn't trying to make that weird. But point being, it's not like she's 6'2" and couldn't make 135. She's very capable of making 135, with a little bit of dieting. Good fighter. And for her to have fights, because she's not going to fight Amanda Nunes for every single fight. Well, we have this fighter called Felicia Spencer under roster. We have to offer her. I think the UFC is contractually obligated to offer fighters 3 fights a year if they're under contract. Well, who do we got? We got Megan Anderson, I guess. She's not available. Okay, let's just find some bum off the streets. Oh, there's this one chick who used to fight on the Ultimate Fighter that one season that fucking sucked. Oh yeah, let's get her. So it's like, and I'm not saying Leah Letson couldn't be a good fighter, but you're taking somebody who's had a tremendous layoff, somebody who doesn't belong in the UFC, somebody who has way less experience, certainly at the higher levels. I mean, you're talking about an Invicta champion and a title challenger in the UFC, and it's like, yeah, it's kind of like. I think that's kind of lost on people. Like, that's dangerous matchmaking. I'm not trying to make it seem like Felicia Spencer's fucking Shane Carwin, in his prime. But it's like, reckless matchmaking has the potential to be dangerous. And it's like, yeah, that chick just kind of got beat up for 3 rounds, you know what I mean, and finished at the end mercifully. So it's like, okay, like we don't have enough, let's call it what it is. We don't have enough fighters to field a fucking top 10. There are not 10 female featherweights on the roster, so why do we have a division? Let's just cut it. I would much rather see, and I have very little appetite for this, but I would much rather see the UFC get rid of the featherweight division and have an atomweight division, because I bet you could field a top 15. You know, I bet you could find 25 atomweights you could put in the UFC. You know, if you go looking over in Japan, you know, in ONE FC and Ryzen and fucking Invicta and Smack Girl and Deep Jewels and all these fucking obscure, you know, MMA organizations. Like, I'm sure you could field an atomweight, a relatively competitive atomweight division. I still don't want to see that, but I'd rather see it than just Zara Fern Dos Santos fighting Felicia Spencer and getting knocked out in 20 seconds. I mean, it's just not really for me. All right, moving on. We had another round 3 finish. Chaos Williams knocking out Miguel Baeza. Very sloppy performance there from Chaos Williams. I was pretty high on Miguel Baeza. Still kind of am, although this makes 2 losses in a row. He's taken a lot of damage, certainly in that Ponzinibbio fight, and then definitely in this fight, getting knocked out. I thought Baeza fought a pretty smart game plan. It seemed like Chaos Williams was just looking for the knockout shot the entire fight, which is not exactly a great strategy. Obviously, he found it in the 3rd round, but very sloppy winging stuff. I mean, it felt really, really forced and not natural. I think he's a good fighter. Obviously, has great power, and you know, now he's like 4-1 in the UFC. So I think he's somebody to look out for. You know, probably a win or 2 from being ranked at welterweight, but I was not very impressed. I think obviously it turned out well for Chaos Williams, but you know, suppose he lost that fight by decision, I'd be pretty down on our good buddy Chaos Williams. But you know, he's certainly a character, a fun guy to watch, and gets another knockout there. So in the end, a fun ending to that fight, unless you're Miguel Baeza, then not very fun. We had Song Yadong on the main card opener, knocking out Julio Arce. I don't think I watched that one. I don't remember that one very much. Song Yadong, an interesting fella to watch out for. I do like that at bantamweight, the UFC and their matchmakers seem to give fighters chances a lot. Or different up-and-coming fighters. Everybody gets a chance. So this was Julio Arce's chance. Like, should Julio Arce be fighting Song Yadong? Maybe, maybe not. You know, some rankings have him in there, some don't. But, like, they'll just give Kyler Phillips a chance against, Song Yadong, like a ranked guy. They'll give Raulian Paiva a chance against Kyler Phillips. I guess the fucking cycle continues. But it's like, the UFC, like, you know, for as stacked and you know, as treacherous as the bantamweight division is, I mean, people get chances in this division. Nobody's really held down in this division. Everybody gets a chance. If you blow that one chance, you might be fucked, but everybody gets an opportunity. We had Joel Alvarez knocking out Thiago Moises in round number 1. Super impressive performance. I am pretty cool on Thiago Moises. Never really thought he was super amazing. But a guy whose striking has definitely improved in, you know, his last 3 or 4 fights. Fights some tough guys, a lot younger than I thought. So at 25, you know, certainly possible that, or 26, excuse me, certainly possible that he turns things around and, becomes more consistent. But Joel Alvarez, I mean, just a guy who fucking, I don't know, just steamrolled him. Seemed like he couldn't miss with his strikes, and just kind of a weird, forgotten guy of the lightweight division. Again, a very stacked division. And I almost put him in the rankings. He's at number 16 unofficially. Just right on the doorstep. Couldn't quite put him in the rankings, but he's right there. Only has one loss to Damir Ismagulov, but just kind of a weird guy too, because he was on that season of The Ultimate Fighter with McGregor and Faber, and it's kind of weird how things work out this way sometimes, where you'll have somebody on a season of The Ultimate Fighter who doesn't end up winning it or really doing anything, who turns out to be a pretty fucking good fighter. Like, you look at the fighters who, you look at like the top 3 fighters in that season of The Ultimate Fighter. Like, Ryan Hall has done pretty much nothing. I mean, I guess he beat BJ Penn, but super old version. Saul Rogers is winning one and losing one in Bellator, and then Artem Lobov is the biggest joke in all of MMA, outside of Valerie Lareda. And then you just have some guy like Joel Alvarez. Like, I don't even remember him from that season of The Ultimate Fighter. Like, I don't even know what he did. But, definitely got to watch out for. Probably at welterweight, though. Because I don't think he's going to get another shot at lightweight. I mean, he's missed it twice, and I believe in his last 2 fights even. So pretty hard to climb a division if you consistently miss that weight. Obviously 6'3" is still going to be pretty fucking massive at 170. So doesn't really have a whole lot to worry about going up to 170. So let's just hope it doesn't turn out like it turned out for James Vick. Let's see here. We had Andrea Lee with a significant win over Cynthia Calvillo. That was a corner stoppage at the end of round 2. Very good striking. Again, it seemed like she couldn't miss. Calvillo, who some people thought was an next Ronda Rousey, certainly is not. No, that was a good win, and significant too, because Calvillo was ranked pretty high in the North Star Sports rankings because that division sucks. So Andrea Lee, with one of the biggest movements in rankings in 2021, she was at number 14, and now she's at number 6. She moved up 8 spots because of that win over Calvillo, because that division's so gross. Calvillo was at number 5, so Andrea Lee, could she be the next fighter to get her ass beat by Valentina Shevchenko? Stay tuned. We had a couple of fights I didn't watch. Courtney Casey and Liliana Jojua. I don't watch fights like that. Rafael Alves choking out Mark Jacasey. Gotta watch out taking down Rafael Alves. I think that dude, I think he has several guillotine chokes on his record. Like, he is known for having a guillotine. So you really don't want to shoot for a single leg on a guy who has a bunch of submission wins, and a bunch of those wins come via guillotine. I'm counting 4, 5, and then there's regional wins that they just say win. They don't even tell you how he won, but we have 5 confirmed guillotine choke victories for Rafael Alves. So kind of a dumb idea there from Jacasey, who's not really known as a wrestler. Jacasey is known, when he was known as a pretty hot prospect, he was known as a striker. He was knocking dudes out, so I don't know why he would do that. And then we had a prelim opener win for Da-Un Jong over Kennedy Ichukwu. I always hear it on the broadcast and then know it and then forget it, and it's just whatever. He lost, so I don't have to worry about knowing how his last name is pronounced for now. Although he is a talented fighter and does have a pretty compelling story as well, so I kind of felt bad that he lost, but very good performance there from Da-Un Jong. They were just standing toe-to-toe, no fucking movement at all, and just, trading punches back and forth, and Jung was the first one to land something significant. Kennedy started to curl up a little bit, and, then we had a, UFC 4 style spamming of elbows by Jung, and he put him down. And, Jung's definitely somebody to watch out for. He's on a 14-fight winning streak, 14-fight unbeaten streak, excuse me. And we have him in the rankings now. We have him at number 15 at light heavyweight, because light heavyweight kind of drops off at 14. So maybe it's a little early, but we have him in there at the rankings. I mean, he is undefeated in 5 UFC appearances, and I think he'll get a relatively big fight at this point in his career. In his next fight, maybe a Misha Serkinov, maybe even Paul Craig. I don't know if old Paul Craig. I don't know if the Bear Jew has a fight coming up, but maybe Paul Craig, maybe Jimmy Crute. I'm sure they can find somebody. Ryan Spann, that would be a little interesting. So, we'll see what they want to do with him. Maybe you go outside of the rankings, but you go with like a Iwan Kutalaba, because he's a pretty active fighter, and that fight only lasted 2.5 minutes, so didn't really take a whole lot of damage. But that's potentially a B-level prospect to watch out for in the light heavyweight division at this time right now. Obviously, more exciting fighters, but when the unbeaten streak continues, we'll see how far he can take it. All right, well, with that, we've reached the end of the recap here. So be sure to check out our rankings. We put a lot of work into that today. You can find them at northstarsports.media. Follow me on Twitter at Owen Ely MN. Follow Northstar Sports on Twitter at NorthstarMIN. Be sure to check out our website at northstarsports.media once you're done checking out our rankings. We're updating the main card showdown. We're fixing the bug that highlights a bunch of random shit on my website with fucking yellow highlighter and then is impossible to take out unless you fix it 4 times. So that's fucking annoying. So just ignore that. A very professional website. And thanks for tuning in, everybody.